And let's see, we should be live. I believe we're live. Just monitoring the end of the DNI show. Let's see here. Let me check the stream quality as people start bouncing in. For those that are watching this as a playback, be good to bounce right into a chat mode. So let's see what we got here. All right, good to check out the stream, make sure everything is solid. And actually tonight, things are looking pretty good. Solid stream, no delays, no issues. And I think we can actually go live, or we are live, but I think we can start tweeting this out. What's up? What's going on? I am just getting everything set up here. Gonna wait for a few people to pop in. XRP, how you doing? Good to see you log in. Good to see you on. I am getting everything set up here. I know DNI is in full effect in his stream. Robert Higgins, how you doing? Be great, yeah. Everybody, if you could hit the likes on your way in, and we'll start rolling here pretty soon. Let everybody kind of filter in, and we can acknowledge people as they walk through the front door. So this is great. If you need a drink, go grab a drink. It's got to be Friday somewhere. So drinking a little bit of scotch. It's always a good way to end the day. Alex Yeet, what's going on, man? Good to see you. I got the banner on the Twitter. Thanks for that. Looks great. Alex actually made this YouTube logo for me as well. So just hit thumbs up. Oh, sorry, my keyboard's a little far away. On the way in. Oh, what's up, XR Pilot? Good to see you on, all the way from Australia. Fantastic. Jeff Walters, XRP Life. All right, this is we're going to definitely have a good conversation tonight. Lots of good things to talk about. Let me pull it up here. Hang on a second. The banner for YouTube. Yeah, definitely. I tried putting it up using it on the YouTube banner. Didn't work. So yeah, GeoXRP from Arizona. Now we're gonna get people from all sorts of time zones logging in. I think it's great. We'll be able to have a good share of ideas. So here we are going just a little bit after 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and looking forward to tonight's conversation. So XRP Carolina, welcome in. Get a drink, find a seat, get comfortable, and enjoy the ride. All right, sweet, man. All right, let's get to it. So a couple of things right off the top. I think we should go through. And actually, Darth Vader, never say never. Yeah, anything is definitely possible. We'll always keep that out there. You just never know what could potentially happen. And this market is ever changing. This market is ever growing. And we're seeing, bigger gains in this market. I believe, we will continue to see bigger gains in this market as we go forward. And as we look back through the years, the digital asset space has some of the biggest gains. I mean, it's been really impressive, but with the gains, we're beginning to see the implementation, and we're going into utility phase. We had the investment phase, and so now we're going to see a lot more activity across the board with the various digital assets, but more specifically, the one digital asset that has a solid use case, which is XRP. So Coinbase coins only. So who else Geo XRP, nice. SBI, yep. So how about this? How about on Twitter, Tone Vey always seems to have and be a bearer of negative messaging, and that's the thing. You know, I don't get for the life of me the idea of being a maximalist. In any one sense of the word, you know, so whether it's a Bitcoin maximalist or, you know, let's say an XRP maximalist, you know, we can appreciate the technologies on all sides. It's really right now about this space. It's about the digital asset space. It's about blockchain technology, and it's really about, you know, the growth, and it's also about, you know, getting some form of governmental, you know, regulatory clarity in this space, so that the U.S. doesn't continuously, you know, slip behind in the development of this space and the acceptance. So obviously we have people from other parts of the world on here, and parts of the world where we are seeing more acceptance of the digital asset space. And so it's so important right now that we really emphasize as a community. And this community, we have multiple communities. So you have the XRP community, there's the Bitcoin maximalist community, there's the Stellar communities, on and on and on and on. But the thing is, we need to see a coming together across the board in order to make sure that governments everywhere around the world begin to you know, allow for you know, regulatory clarity and acceptance of digital assets. As soon as there's infighting, just like anything else, divided we fall. You know, so we want to make sure that there's some unity. That they're really the unifying banner here is the fact that this is a brand new growing you know, asset class that is really enriching millions, and has the potential of enriching millions upon millions upon millions of people globally. It also has the potential of, when we talk about leveling the playing field, and we brought this up last night, but it has the potential of leveling the playing field across the board. And I'm not saying making everybody equal. What I'm saying is giving everybody equal access to opportunity. So what you do with that equal access to the opportunity is really up to you. And so leveling of the playing field anywhere in the world, allow people to participate in the global economy, allow people to participate economically, whether they're in India, in Africa, in Latin America, in the United States, Europe, Australia, wherever, it doesn't matter, but allow them to be a participant. And that's really what's key here. So Dan, what's up? Good to see you on. Tina Hall, glad that you made it on. Jay Hyatt, let's see, he gets more play for talking about bad about XRP than saying good things about BTC. I think you're right about that. You know, he's definitely starving for attention. You know, whenever you see kind of people are going to throw out something negative as they do vie for attention, and they realize that it's not about them anymore, and they want to continuously be accepted in the space. And you know, we see the same concern with JP Morgan as they introduced the JPM coin. So just staying relevant in the space. So all right, so that's Tone Vey. You know, I just thought, you know, we bring that up, and his bad mouthing XRapid, and actually claiming it as a scam. Here it is on Twitter. I mean, it just kills me, because it's gone live. Banks are accepting it. Banks have done their due diligence. Tone Vey to come out and say that XRapid is a scam by Ripple to make up a reason for the XRP existence, so they don't go to prison for creating fake money out of thin air. I mean, that's just absurd, you know. But the thing is, as a Bitcoin maximalist, wouldn't the same argument then be equally applied, that money is being created, and you could claim that it's fake money since it's digital. I mean, it's ridiculous. You know, it's accepted. It's an acceptable means of exchange. Digital assets are here to stay, and just because you are fully in on Bitcoin doesn't mean that, you know, XRP is any less valuable just because you prefer the initials BTC. It's just absurd. You know, it's all about, again, you know, we just talked about the significance of this space, so that's just kind of ridiculous. The dude that was sitting next to him in that video, he's the one who did the live chat with Matt Hamilton. Which video were you talking about on that one? Let's see. HODL DNI is live too. I don't know what to watch now. You got to watch them both. I know. I'm gonna let me throw up DNI. I'm live now. I know. He was streaming, and that's okay. You know, we're gonna have some overlap sometimes, but he was streaming because Brad Kimes ran a little bit late, starting late, but that's fine. So we got a nice group here, and we're gonna keep talking, so that's fine. But you can bounce back and forth too. You know, we're playing both at the same time. So, oh yeah, yep. So yeah, forget about that guy. You know, Tone Vey. All right, so let me get into, there's another thing that kind of came up, and this is the SEC, and it really kills me because, you know, as much as we're looking for some form of regulatory clarity to occur in the United States in order for this space to continuously develop, and we look at the development of the Bitcoin ETF as a stepping stone, but yet every time it comes up to go through, the SEC continuously punts it. And in my opinion, part of the SEC not taking it up is because once they do pass it through, that definitely sets a precedence. However, I don't think that they're 100% prepared for it yet. And so with that, if there's a lack of preparedness on their part, even though they've had a considerable amount of time to really get their shit together and make up a decision. However, you know, we see the Token Taxonomy Act still sitting front and center. So we don't know exactly who they could potentially be getting their marching orders from. But as we go through, and actually there was something interesting here, and let me just jump into this, and then we'll go we're going to go backwards through my notes that I put together of things that I wanted to talk about tonight. But this one has to be, let's see, it was published about a month ago. Let me see here. Hang on. Oh, there we go. All right. Hang on a second. All right. Shoot. What did I just do? Huh. I clicked that link that you just put up in the chat. And I gotta exit out of that. Hang on a second. There we go. I gotta reopen my my chat window. Hang on a second. I opened up the link and it opened up in the chat window. Let me pop out the chat again. So about a month ago, there was an article that came out by the SEC. Here we go again. All right, this was, let's see, April 3rd. It was called a Statement on Framework for Investment Contract Analysis of Digital Assets. It was Bill Hinman, Director of Division of Corporation Finance, Valerie Skidzpanik, can't pronounce her last name for anything, Senior Advisor for Digital Assets and Innovation. What's important here, let me just read some snippets out of this because it all kind of brings it together, where we see some within the SEC that have an opinion, but they're not providing a statement in terms of providing clear-cut regulation. And so we see people within the SEC dabbling with the idea. We see definitely some pro-digital asset leanings and tendency, but we're not seeing full adoption yet within this space. And so here, what I thought was interesting is they set out as a financial technologies, I skipped down too far. So as part of a continuing effort to assist those seeking to comply with the U.S. federal securities law, FinHub is publishing a framework for analyzing whether a digital asset is offered and sold as an investment contract and therefore as a security. The framework is not intended to be an exhaustive overview of the law, but rather an analytical tool to help market participants assess whether the federal securities law applies to offer sale or resale of a particular digital asset. So this is, again, it's just kind of opinion. They're trying to provide some form of guidance. They're not providing concrete rule or regulation. And so as they then break it down, they said more specifically, the information contained in this framework may apply to entities conducting the following activities related to digital assets. And then there's a list: offering, selling, or distributing, marketing or promoting, buying, selling, or trading, facilitating exchanges, holding or storing, offering financial services as management or advice, and other professional services. And then this is, again, where they kind of stipulate this framework represents staff views and is not a rule, regulation, or statement of the Commission. The Commission has neither approved nor disapproved its content. So they get to have it really both ways. And so we're seeing the SEC, some within the Commission, being able to come out in favor of providing some framework of guidance, but it's not really guidance because it's not really backed up by concrete law. And obviously then we turn to Congress and we see the Token Taxonomy Act, which is stuck in the Financial Services Committee. We see an amazing Token Taxonomy Act that has IRS tax code changes that are now being requested by Maxine Waters to be removed. And so there's some speed bumps along the way to get some clear idea of how we're going to see this regulation or at least some clarity in the space as it comes to digital asset by Congress. Once Congress signs off on it, once it goes to Senate, once Senate signs off on it, once the president signs off on it, then we're going to see the SEC actually moving forward and abiding by the law at that point and coming up with further decision and interpretation. So I think there's still a little bit of a road to go down until we actually see something happening. So let's see. Let me go up here. Let's see who's popped in. A lot of people. Oh, I missed this here. Jeff Walters. Appreciate that, man. $5. Really, thank you very much. I try to give as much as I can. Try to bring interesting content, things that I I'm passionate about, and putting my spin on it. Trying to at least give some opinion on the subject. So definitely, if you could, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. If you haven't hit the thumbs up yet, go ahead and do that. If you haven't tweeted it out yet, go ahead and do that. And we'll get the word out on the street. This is where we want to talk, serious talk about regulation and government stuff. So let's simplify that. So there's been a lot of discussion, and this kind of came up, and I was talking to DNI a little bit about this earlier. And it was interesting because, I look at the idea of a one world currency. I'm against, just to put it blunt, I'm against the idea of a one world government. I'm also against the idea of a one world currency. And the reason why I'm against it, I don't believe that either are functional. I think both are detrimental. I think both are also an infringement on each country's national identity. And so it causes other tension that we already have enough tension in the world. You put in place some form of a one world government, and all countries, all cultures don't function the same way. So it's almost impossible to have a one world government. There's different expectation. Maybe some time from now, a long time from now, in some utopia state, maybe that will exist, but in this day and age, impossible and detrimental to where it would cause even more chaos on the street. But the idea of why there really cannot be a one world currency and why digital asset as a currency still won't bring about a one world currency. So I'd love to see some feedback from you guys on this as well as we start going through it. But I really think this is a really important and interesting topic to go through. So I'm sorry, Richter, what's up? I'm sorry, I had the chat kind of buried as I'm going through some of these notes. There were a bunch of points that I wanted to go through. So sovereignty, there you go. So it's as though you're reading my notes. Am I sharing my screen? Am I sharing my notes? Yeah. So for sure, sovereignty is number one. Sovereignty is everything, and exactly why a one world government will never work. And it doesn't matter the influence of a digital asset. Sovereignty is so critical, and now through history, a part of a country's independence from external influence is having its own currency. Now we saw and we continue to see. Whether we can go into the financial aspect and the economic impact of the euro on European countries. We saw an opening of the borders throughout Europe. We recently saw a vote recently over the past year or so. We saw a vote of Brexit, which was the UK wanting to leave the EU. But in essence, if you look at the UK was never a full participant in the EU, as they never really allowed the loss of their full sovereignty, and they didn't relinquish the utility of their own currency. And so the other nations, and maybe we have people here from Europe, and you might have a completely different take on this, and I totally appreciate the idea of being in a Europe where you can travel with with open borders, and you don't have to worry about showing your passport at every stop as you drive through Europe. Super important, makes it very effective. However, when it comes to the economies from an economic perspective, we see many of the countries within Europe suffered and are continuously suffering due to the fact that it was a forced adoption of a euro that was which was higher in value than many of the nation's currencies. And as a legal framework and legal entity within this economy, countries were forced pretty much to raise the cost of goods in those countries, regardless of the economic status of that country. Greece, Italy, the list can go on and on if you look through the EU countries, but I pick out Greece in particular because they definitely felt a tremendous impact with the introduction of the euro, where many of the countries, again, you had a lower cost of living, which was impacted with the introduction of the EU, which drove prices up. And so, what's up, Home Value Glass? Glad to see you on. Glad D&I sent you guys over. Ali G, Tina Hall, I think I saw you on earlier. I completely get mixed up between chatting here when I'm doing a live stream or seeing someone on D&I's or after. All the chats kind of blend in. Big Mungo. I see a lot of new Ed French. I see a lot of new faces that have come on. Clara Snowden, Miyagi, what's up? Wildstar, you made it on another live stream. That's awesome. The EU is definitely finding it out now. So Wildstar, that's 100% the truth. The EU is Tammy Douglas. How you doing? Not too late, so join in and have some fun. Spanish Fly, what's going on? Glad you made it in. Hollywood. That's Hollywood. Come on. That is home. That's not Fort Lauderdale. That's Hollywood. What's up, Moneybags? How you doing? Anthony Jackson. What's going on? There's DNI. I knew you'd make it in. So we're seeing this upheaval right now within Europe. We're seeing, definitely a negative impact economically speaking. Now, the thing is, for years as I would travel and work over there, the one statement that I would get, especially going over to Germany, is that people on the street, business owners, individuals, they felt that in Germany, they were the ones holding up the entire European economy. And that is extremely detrimental when you have one country or a handful of countries that are supporting all the others. And again, because it was a forced, it was a forced organization, and it was a forced economic change. Which obviously over years it takes time to see that impact, but again is really a lesson to be learned from, and an understanding as to why we're not going to see a one world currency anytime soon. It didn't work in Europe. Now, why does it work in the United States? Because obviously the United States being one country, and it's different. So the European Union making an attempt to be similar to a United States with easily traveled, easy transport of goods across borders. The one thing that as to why the United States is really different than other countries, and again, even though it's a melting pot of cultures, the United States has its own national identity as the United States, and people come to the United States because they want to be Americans. They want to be in the U.S. People in Europe, Australia, Japan, wherever, people have a national identity that they're proud of. They have a heritage. And so the United States is unique in that people from all over the world come here and can immediately become Americans in this melting pot. And I think, it's so unique, so different. But again, if you take away that one aspect, that one point of sovereignty from these countries, which is the currency aspect, it really disrupts things, significantly. Now, at the same time, we really need to look at another perspective. So we look at, okay, here's why a one world currency probably won't exist. And here's why it hasn't worked so far in the experiment of the European Union. And even again, if it's a digital asset, now this doesn't exclude the fact that the world needs a reserve currency. The world needs a commonality similar to if you look at if you look around the world and you say, if you were to pick any one language, what is the one language that's considered the business language? And the one language that's considered the business language is English. So regardless of where you live in the world, when you're doing business, if you're in China and you're doing business with the Middle East, there's a high probability chance that the people interacting with each other are going to be speaking English, unless somebody from China is studying Arabic. Probably somebody in the Middle East, for instance, isn't necessarily going to be speaking Chinese, but typically the common language of business is English, similar to the concept that the common reserve currency in the world has become the US dollar, and as much as there could potentially be this animosity around the world from other countries, whether this animosity comes from jealousy or maybe a misunderstanding as to why the United States dollar is utilized as a reserve currency, and primarily because the United States is the one hegemonic superpower of the world. And even when the United States was a superpower with the Soviet Union, and although China's rising up as another potential competitive superpower, but although the Soviet Union was a counterbalance to the United States, the US dollar was still the reserve currency. And just like you need a common language, you need a common currency, but you don't just need any common currency, you need a common currency that is stable, that provides stability. So the US dollar over the years, regardless of the inflation and all of that, and obviously we've seen that, all over the world. However, during a time when you see extreme inflation, hyperinflation in many countries, the US dollar has remained relatively stable. And so that's so critical as a trade currency. Now, if we talk about the leveling of the playing fields, now this is really where it becomes crucial to then look at the digital asset space, and what can the digital asset space provide for this reserve currency as a replacement of potentially of the US dollar. And this is where, we begin to see a change of dynamics within the marketplace. And so obviously there's a lot more that we can get into when we talk about XRP as to why XRP is potentially the best digital asset to serve as a reserve currency. But without getting into and kind of regurgitating all the details that we already know, transparent, the cheapest, the fastest, and really the best, and with through Ripple's initiatives, through XRapid that wants to develop a digital asset providing easy, accessible liquidity to facilitate trade is even more amazing. So but there's so much more that needs to go into this. It's not going to happen overnight. If we want to see a replacement of the reserve currency different from a replacement of Nostro and Vostro accounts held by banks, that's really step one. I believe we're going to see this dynamic shift when the banks start waking up, when banks start seeing the acceptance of RippleNet, of XCurrent, which many banks are beginning to use, and then the turning on of XRapid as a more acceptable form of liquidity, which will allow banks to free up capital, which will allow banks to close these Nostro and Vostro accounts. Now we start seeing the dynamic shift, because now these banks who will 100% be using a digital asset for global trade. The dynamic shift, and we see DNI talking a lot about what could happen from a global perspective if the IMF gets involved in this. Thanks, Andrew Nation, appreciate that. Man, the XRP bananas, the weather, it's awesome. So that image was actually from, I forget what day, that was yesterday I took that picture. So beautiful day yesterday, and you gotta love it at the beach. So XRP the Great, glad DNI sent you over here, and so that's awesome. Tricky. It is. It really is. So yeah. So let's see here. Now let's go down a little bit further. So we look at needing a stable currency. We look at the fact that a digital asset like an XRP could provide that support mechanism for a reserve currency once it reaches a level of stability at whatever dollar amount that's going to be, to provide the amount of liquidity that's going to be required, not just for cross-border payments, but for being a reserve currency. That would also then potentially be adopted by organizations like the IMF and and others. But I think again, the first stage of full utility that we're going to see before it hits any form of global impact is going to be in the cross-border payment spaces, which is really what their primary focus has been as that initial step forward. Now, what is important here is to then look at the counterbalance, as what I had said before, and we see a lot of talk about China or Russia trying to offset the U.S. dollar as a leading economic power, or the United States as a leading economic power, and the U.S. dollar. However, I don't see any threat. The only dynamic shift that in my opinion, I would see, offsetting the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency will be when a digital asset comes into play. It's definitely not going to happen with the Chinese yuan or the renminbi or the ruble or whatever it might be, the euro. None of these currencies are stable enough to become a reserve currency. And if we look at, you go back to the SDR, the U.S. dollar is the majority reserve currency and has the majority of the voting rights. But all, so the dynamics is just, it's different. And we have to accept reality for what reality is. And again, if there's people out there that have some animosity towards the United States because of the reality on the ground, then that's kind of their problem. They just have to go back and study, what's happening economically and get a good understanding as to the why why it exists the way it exists. Now, as we move into a balancing again, to kind of restate what I said, but to achieve this balance or this level playing field, I think that's going to is really the most amazing potential aspect of digital assets. I said it last night. I said a little bit earlier that as digital assets introduced to the nation states that can drill down to really the lowest common denominator on the street that typically lives by fiat currency, giving this individual a potential opportunity to join their broader economy, which is amazing. So, it's just immense. And so I think I believe D&I had mentioned this. I can't remember who mentioned this, but it was in one of the conversations talking about XRP and XLM really potentially coming together. And I do see them as definitely complementary to one another. You have the XRP token, which is being utilized and promoted through the RippleNet solution. XRP for sure, it's more of a larger economic transfer solution, whereas the idea behind the Stellar organization and XLM was really made specifically for micropayments. So this is exactly where you see the complementary aspect and nature of these two solutions. You plug them together, and there's really nothing out there that could really compete with that. Home value. I think that's interesting. I pulled up an article. There was an issue with some of the transactions, which caused a delay in some of the buys and sells of XLM a couple days ago, and so that's something that would I need to look into a little bit more in terms of the actual network to see what kind of functionality. But overall, you see XLM kind of tracks with XRP. So as XRP increases in value, XLM is kind of right behind it. So what's up, Bob Moneybags? Glad you made it on. Oh, look at this. I'm running out of, there we go. Colorful Crypto. They don't really need a partnership. I don't see it as a partnership. I see the two being utilized as a kind of as a combined solution. I think XRP can definitely do both, but to me they've been very complementary in their solution. So let me see here. Digital asset conductor. If China decides to dump the U.S. Treasury bonds, that would be a catalyst. See, the reason why I don't see any dumping from any side. It's going to hurt, definitely have an impact on the U.S. economy, which would be devastating to the Chinese economy. It's not a zero-sum game. Well, I guess it could be a zero-sum game in that case. Really, there's no winners. But in terms of look at this. It's not much in there. So. If you look at the Chinese aren't going to do anything detrimental to their own economy that would destroy their economy. If you look at China's obviously built up a monster. If you dig into the history of China as a communist country, there was a lot of for them to overcome as they introduced a capitalist form of economy into a Scotch night. It is a Scotch night, yeah. So it was. It is. It's actually pretty good. So, not a. I got to find the water. I've got bottles of water over there in front of me, and just a little bit of Scotch tonight. So not a lot. You can't have a lot of Scotch during the week. Just a little bit. It's enough to enjoy and while you talk here. So Jeff Walters, last time China tried the old sell the bonds, it didn't work out so well, and it's not going to, and so that to me is really, the balance here. As we get into this trade war, there's a whole balancing act. So I'm not really overly concerned about it. I do business with a Chinese company. And I think and I know a lot of people that do business in China, and it's extremely difficult to do business in China, and it has always been that way. It's just from a mentality perspective, they're a bit more, aggressive in nature, but then also in terms of just their business sense. Is a little bit different than the rest of the world on what they see as acceptable business practice. So it can be extremely difficult to work and negotiate with companies over in China. But at the same time, I bring that up because these companies rely on exports. And so if there's a major upset in the economy, it's going to be super detrimental to their economy. And again, they rely heavily on the United States. They rely heavily on their exports. So this supposed trade war is really just setting things back into to create an environment where the Chinese aren't manipulating their currency to make their currency lower value so that we can buy more exports. I talked about the other night. So let's Crypto Bird Dog, what's up? Glad to see you on. Let's see here. I want to just see if I can grab some. XLM isn't a digital asset that really has a place in the financial world as far as the average investor. It's a possibility. I don't know. With XLM is increased in value. So far, it's speculative, just like others. It's being utilized by IBM. And it's definitely, it has, as stellar the organization, has a couple solid partnerships with some use cases that they're working on. They're definitely in that micropayment space, and I think it's an interesting dynamic. So we'll see. Time will tell. So this goes back to the same argument or discussion that we had Microsoft or Apple or whatever it might be. And the many others that existed, or IBM, which one's going to come out on top? We're going to see the flushing out of, and maybe, if we go to the 90s, might have been more appropriate with the high tech, but you saw a flushing out of many of the high tech companies that just didn't have a use case, and they were no longer financially feasible. People were pouring money into them because they had a concept but no real use case, and they disappeared. Because their use case never came to fruition. So, we'll probably see the same thing, happen with this. So, wait a minute. Tina, come join me going live after Jeff. Awesome. Crypto Bird Dog, you're going live? Nice. Spanish Fly, I HODL a little XLM just to see how well it may do. You know what? I've offset my holdings in the beginning. So this goes back to 2017 when I jumped in and I was getting into different digital assets. I saw XLM and XRP, and XLM was definitely one of those that I got into as well. I don't really see any issue with it. It's just an offset. That's all. It's just it's a digital asset. I think it's important. Overall. So Auburn Rain, what's up? Glad to see you on. Let me see where we're at here. We have got 63 in the stream. Glad everybody's taking their evening to spend with us all here. We got people from all over the world, different time zones. Got a bunch of people from California. Got people from Australia, Florida, Thailand, and everywhere else in between. So try to go down the Glenn Morangi, man, good stuff. It's funny, I was talking to a buddy of mine. I'm like, man, I never get how I go to someone's house and they must have like 10, 11, 12. I don't know. They have a whole cabinet of different scotches and whiskeys. And I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, how in the world does anybody keep all those bottles of scotch and whiskey in their house? Because there's always some in there. And I say, whenever I get a bottle, I'll invite somebody over and people come over, you drink it, boom, it's gone. Now I go into my cabinet and it's like you drink a little bit and then all of a sudden you're just like, you know what? I need to try something else. And now I have a whole cabinet filled with different scotches and whiskeys. And now I'm ready to go back out and get something else. So, but I got this Ainsley Bray, which is really good. It's a Highland Scotch that I like a lot. Let's see. Ali G. Yeah, I've been working. Yeah, every day I try to work out. It's tough too, so you got to get up. You got to get up early, workout, and then you got to go between, a cardio routine. You got to mix it up. Every single day has to be a little bit different. And I went through a period of time where I actually lost a lot of muscle due to a complete change in my diet. And then it was crazy. I did this blood work and it told me that I was allergic to all this stuff, all these trigger allergies. And I started cutting all my foods out and then there was nothing left to eat. And so it was extremely difficult. So you gotta have a good diet plan, good workout regimen, everything in balance. And if one thing is off, it totally messes you up. Your energy levels, everything else get totally screwed up. So, all right, yeah, let's have a party over here. That'd be great. We need to have an XRP party. We'll do it somewhere in South Florida, and I think we could hold it at the Cryptocurrency Cafe up in West Palm Beach. I believe from what Chip had said, they're super acceptable up there to the XRP community. They even have a special wastebasket for anyone that comes from the XRP community. If you want to dispose, it's like your own private garbage can. So, all right, let's see here. Let me go down the list. What is this? Oh, this is something. We don't have to get into this. I had pulled an article over here. Had to do with IMF aid programs that kind of help out, but they need some fine tuning. I don't want to get into that. I do want to get into two things. Let me start with this because I think this is important to note. And let me see if I actually had opened up this article up here. Why am I not seeing it? SEC. Oh, here we go. So this was already from like a week ago. I've had this link for like over a week. It's from May 14th, and I've been wanting to talk about it, and I just never fit it in. And it was a major Brazilian bank, Bradesco, joins R3 and utilizing their Corda-powered global trade finance network. So we do know that R3 with Corda implemented XRP as their first digital asset to be utilized in the Corda framework. And so this is the Marco Polo network, which utilizes the R3 Corda. So it's important because, again, we could look at R3 as a competitor or R3's Marco Polo blockchain network, specifically geared towards finance and cross-border payment. And we see banks joining up. Again, we know that they use XRP. We also know that this is a potential competitor to the RippleNet solutions. But competition is healthy. Competition utilizing digital asset. Competition that has availability to utilize XRP is even a more healthy relationship. But here we see Banco Bradesco, which is one of Brazil's leading banks. And it says here it had total assets worth $3.8 billion and a market cap of. And so this is really important when we see banks around the world beginning to join join the concept. They're accepting of the digital asset space. They're accepting of a blockchain powered company to manage their financial exchanges, and that's huge. That really makes a big difference. So Let's see. Tina Hall, I wonder how that guy's doing. Chip, if you've been back there after, yeah, Chip just lambasted that guy. I wonder how many people went over there to visit. Chip, did you get any feedback from that guy up there? Did anyone go visit him? Did he get any phone calls or people going up there and asking for the XRP espresso? Can I get that the Ripple cappuccino? XRP bananas. Can you talk about USDX or EuroX, which are both eToroX? That's something that I would have to talk about another time. I have to read into that a little bit. I don't, on eToro. Honestly, I've never been on eToro. I don't know much about eToro, so it's hard for me to comment on eToro. XRP party in Vegas, awesome. Let's make some plans here. That'll be in June. And that's digital asset conductor. Nice. I like that idea. I'm up for that. Auburn Rain. Here we go. Vet Pro. Thoughts on the new Saudi corridor going over to India. So I was just listening to something on that. Somebody posted that. And I thought that was really interesting. I think it's important. I think it's amazing when we see a country like Saudi Arabia embracing a digital asset and blockchain powered solution. It really, it's important. It just is really, really important, considering that, what's the right, I don't know why it's evading me right now. Let's say halal would be for meat. Kosher. There has to be like a halal trade, and I can't remember the terminology for it. But in order for there to be acceptable banking, there can't be interest on loans or anything like that. They can't gain interest. They can't pay interest. It's a whole ordeal. But to have this Sharia compliant, I guess would be a better terminology. But to have this Saudi to India, it's huge for many different reasons. We see a transaction coming out of Saudi Arabia utilizing a blockchain powered solution, and then we have India that is antagonistic to digital asset trading, and they basically disrupted all of the Indian exchanges. And so now we have India accepting financial transactions via a digital asset blockchain-backed solution. So I think that it kind of speaks for itself, and yes, Ripple Net does have access to many of the banks. However, none of them are utilizing the X Rapid solution yet. But the question then is in India, and I believe they're completely accepting of the fact that they can utilize RippleNet, they can utilize Xcurrent, and they can utilize the X Rapid solution. They just don't want people trading in digital asset. So it's okay if they're exchanging their my mind's drawing a blank on everything. What's the Indian currency? Why can't I think of what it is? Go on. There's a 20-second delay, so 20 seconds. Someone's gonna throw it up there. I don't know why I can't think of it. So whatever the currency is. So you have the Indian currency exchange. They're okay with exchanging that over to the rupee, of course. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. So we got the rupee. It must be what it is. It's something. I don't know. Yeah, brain. It's just too much using the brain. It begins to shut down. The brain overheats. But no, I think that's it's critical. And as these banks, I want to get back into. I'm going to do a whole nother discussion and dig into India and what's going on over there. There's such a disruption over there, and it was one of the first videos that I made was on India. And after having worked over there and traveling over there and working with a lot of different businesses over there, it's such an amazing place for economic growth. And there's so much corruption in government over there that I kind of foresaw them shutting this down, and the government and the central bank over there, they're not going to allow anything to interfere with their control and manipulation of the currency over there. And right around the time, and I've said this before, but just to reiterate, right around the time they began this whole shutting down of digital asset space in India, they also wiped out 75% of the fiat currency and began moving everybody over to the digital rupee, or just digital currency, and they were forcing people into banking, which was kind of it. And I haven't really done a sincere follow up to see what's going on with all of that. I just know it for years and years and years. It was extremely difficult to work with these companies over in India due to the fluctuation in the exchange rates were just detrimental to doing business. And it was extremely difficult. And then the business that we were doing over there was basically shut down by the government due to government regulation, to the detriment of the population over in India. It was really just poor decisions based on the lobbying of other companies. So you definitely see manipulation in these industries. And what's interesting, the reason why there's a large percentage of corruption over there is because when I sat down with the people we're doing business with, and they were pricing out the product, and they were explaining to me all the different line items that they're putting in cost-wise in transport, and one of the line items in their cost was basically bribes, and bribing people to move goods through customs. And it was amazing on what they had to do over there. And it's just not the way people do business anywhere else, but that's how they did business over there apparently. So it was just astonishing. I don't know. There's just a way of business. So anyhow, let me go through, see if I missed anything good here, comment wise. And then we're kind of coming up on an hour. Let's see, Carrie Doll. I've seen a lot of new names on here that I haven't seen before. So really, really glad to see all these new names. I'm sure DNI sent you all over here. So if you're brand new to the channel, make sure that you hit subscribe while you're here. If you want to get a notification, hit the bell. You guys know how to do that. Make sure you give a thumbs up on your way in, your way out. Today's Monday. It's crazy. I don't know. It doesn't feel like Monday. But anyhow, DNI streams Monday through Friday at 9 p.m. I'm streaming now Mondays and Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Then we've got Chip XRP Minute streams Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 p.m. And we've got Auburn Rain, who's on here. I saw him pop in a little while ago. Auburn Rain, he streams on Friday nights at 10 p.m. Then I go on again Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. I try to throw on another stream during the weekends as well. So a lot of great things coming up. And so that's it, guys. I truly appreciate everybody being on tonight. It was awesome. Always glad to see new faces popping in. We also have a great, I'm sure we'll have a great conversation tomorrow night after DNI with XRP Minute, and then I'll be back on Wednesday with a bunch of great new content. So I'll try to get a nice photo when I'm out and about, and put up some local photos. I always like getting images from where I'm traveling and whatnot. I tried to do a live stream when I was out walking. I was out kind of in an Everglades kind of foresty area Saturday morning, and then my app crashed and I was getting attacked by mosquitoes, and so I just hit the road. But it was kind of tough to start that conversation out in the woods. I was kind of taking a note from Chip. He's out there on the beach and kind of enjoying, and it's relaxing, walking up there in West Palm Beach. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this over here. And it's, the woods and all this, and it looks cool. And then forget about the mosquitoes. So anyhow, that's it, guys. Again, thanks for being on. Totally appreciate it. Appreciate the time you guys take to to listen, to watch, to comment, to be part of the show. Really has a real positive impact on everything. And I'll tell you what, as we go through this, I learn a ton from the comments, so it's great. And as we get more people on, it's nice too, because you get that community sense as you start following to other channels, or you see similar people all the time. XRP, Angel Connie, what's up? You missed most of it, or you missed all of it? But almost missed it. Well, I'm glad you made it in. And that's it, guys. So we'll see you guys Wednesday night. And I believe Crypto Bird Dog said she's going to be streaming right now. So let's go join Crypto Bird Dog. If you want to put a link up here, I'll keep it open for a minute wherever you're streaming from. Look forward to see you over there. So that's it. Until I see you guys next time, keep on hodling your crypto. Maybe I should keep it open for a minute. Good night. Got to get to my OBS here.